And hello again. So here's a video about one game in particular, but I'll just give you a bit of history before I start it. So this is my PS2 with free HD boot installed, so I've got a hard drive in there with these games. And as soon as I did that, I was quite interested to get a few of the Japan exclusive Sega Ages 2500 series that came out for the PS2, that were basically a bunch of updates and ports of classic Sega games. So you see I've got a few here. I've got Dynamite Deka, which was a die-hard arcade on Saturn and in the arcade as well. I've got Galaxy Force 2, which has got a really nice kind of high-res version of the arcade game Galaxy Force 2. And the subject of this video is Sega Ages 2500 Volume 23, which is just called Memorial. It's actually a compilation of classic Sega arcade games, and the game in particular that I want to show on this video is called Borderline. So let's kick this one off. So, Volume 23 of Sega Ages, Japan, is a compilation of 5 classic arcade games. Now, the really cool thing about this, which is what makes me interested in it, is not the originals. I'm familiar with some of these old games. None of them are hugely interesting to me, to be honest. Apart from maybe Borderline. So I'll just do a quick go of the original arcade version, but the whole reason I'm making this video is for the updated, graphically upgraded version that they made for this release. So I'll just show you a little bit of the original game first, and then we'll go straight on to the meat of the video. So this is an arcade game from 1981, and it is a kind of a genre mashup of different stages. So, as a lot of old arcade games were in those days, each stage is a completely different genre. So stage 1, which you're seeing here, is kind of like a typical vertical scrolling shooter, which in itself was quite an original thing in 1981. We'll just get through this bit. One of the interesting things about this is that even though it's vertically scrolling, full scrolling, you can actually shoot behind you. Sorry, just left and right. You can shoot left and right, not behind you. But anyway, that's that first bit over. Now the second stage is like a dig-dug type thing. But interestingly, I was just reading, this actually came out before Dig Dug and Mr. Do. So even though a lot of people have compared this as like a Dig Dug clone, very interestingly, it's probably more likely that Dig Dug may have been influenced by this. The actual gameplay is a bit more simple than Dig Dug, but you can see here it's extremely similar in that you dig your little tunnel and then the enemies can then go through the tunnel that you've just made. Anyway, that's about the extent of this game. So let's just go back to the real reason for this video, which was the 2006, I think it was, when this came out, remake that Sega made just for this disc. So we're on the arranged versions of the games now. Here are the other games quickly. There's the penguin platformer game Congo Bongo, which is like an isometric clone of Donkey Kong. Tranquilizer Gun, which is like a maze shooter. And a kind of puzzle game where you drag stuff around as well. And Head On, which is kind of constantly moving Pac-Man type thing. You may be well aware of that, it's a pretty well known game. So here is Borderline, the remastered version made for this release by Sega. Now it's a very simple game, but as you can see it's completely and utterly different to the original arcade version. So different that it's not the same game at all really. It's like they just maybe they started with a few ideas to update it and then just thought, well, let's just make a whole completely different game. Had a whole bunch of extra ideas. So what this actually ends up being is like a twin stick controlled tank shooter, overhead tank shooter, as you can see. Now we've got very nice smooth controls. I'm using the analog sticks on my PS2 pad at the moment. So the right hand stick is shooting any direction with the gun turret, and then the left analog stick is for moving your tank in any direction as well. So you get 3 different guns. You get flame, standard shot, and this laser sword type thing. Now the standard shot, which is one I keep it on mostly, like this one has infinite ammo and you can just keep firing all the time. The other two, if you look at the top left there, you have a progress bar that kind of wears out while you're using it, and in the case of the laser it gets shorter. So now I've completely run out. You've just got to wait for it to replenish. So I'll move on to a different weapon, and now the laser's replenished. So the drawback for using the laser and the flame is that they don't run out really. They run out quite quickly, and you have to recharge them. So I do find myself just keeping it on standard shot pretty much all the time. The laser is the only real useful other weapon, and the main time I use that is for blowing up buildings that take more shots, because it kills them a lot quicker. So the real task of this game, and there is really only one goal of each stage, is to shoot the round orb type things. As you can see, I just shot one of them there. So on stage 1A, which I've just finished, there's only one of those, so that's a very easy stage. If you look in the top right hand corner of the screen, it's got 3. That's indicating that I've got to destroy 3 of those emplacements, those rotating orb emplacement things on this stage. So you have a range of enemies. You've got tanks, you've got these little guys, which in greatest tradition of overhead tank games you can run over instead of shooting if you like. You have a few different types of gun turrets to fire against. So there's a missile firing one that I've just killed there. You've got these guys here that fire continuous laser bolts. You can't shoot them through the walls, you have to go around the back of the wall to get them. Like that. So that's base number 2. Second base destroyed. One left to get. Now you'll see there's a little map in the top right hand corner, that green grid. It gives you very little useful information about the game except for where your targets are that you have to destroy, and you can only see them on there when you get relatively near them. As you can see, if you look in the middle of that green grid now, the dot in the middle is me, and that red dot is one of my targets, and it's this one here, and that's the end of stage 1B. I took a bit of damage there at the end, but luckily I managed to finish the stage just before I died. as you see, or you get full replenishment of your energy at the beginning of each new stage. So this is obviously very similar to a lot of games that you can think of, overhead tank shooters and various twin stick shooters. I mean, what this really plays like is a kind of simple retro game that you might find on Steam or such. There's quite a few kind of retro style twin stick shooters on Steam. But it's a really good game though. The controls very tight, the controls feel really nice. Your tank always moves forwards, it's got a front and a back, so you do have to account sometimes when you're trying to change direction quickly. You've got to wait for your tank to reposition itself. So although you can move in any direction, sometimes it's quicker to turn around one way than the other depending on which way your tank's already facing. And the same goes for the turret as well. So if I'm shooting up and I suddenly move down, you've got to still wait for that second or so for the gun to actually rotate round to the new position that you want to fire in. So in a way, gameplay wise, it reminds me quite a lot of Desert Strike, which was that helicopter game where you have various objectives to do for each stage, mostly of which are just going to certain things and shooting them, which is exactly the same as this. And in Desert Strike you also get energy pickups and armour pickups and stuff. So in this game, the only pickup there is an energy bar booster, and they are in set positions on the stages. So next time we find one of those, I'll point it out. So you've got this pretty cool gun emplacement here which fires like a kind of bullet hell bullet pattern until you've killed him. Got a gun turret here. There's an energy tank, so you see my energy bar on the top left there is very low. An E-tank basically gives you 50% of your bar back, as you saw it did just then. So like Desert Strike, one of the main tactics you'll find yourself using in this game is when there's a gun emplacement to shoot, you will kind of position yourself so you're a whole screen away from him. Like this. And you shoot him just when he's on the edge of the screen before he gets a chance to aim at you. So that's a tactic you'll be very often using in this game. Just did it again there. I'll do it on this guy there. So it kind of compels you to approach new areas with caution, slowly, rather than just running straight into the middle of everything so that everything's firing you at the same time. If you do that, then you've pretty much had it. Now I'm still on very easy stages of the game. I don't know how many stages there are in total. I think so far I've got to 3D. So it goes 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, then it goes up to 2, 2A, 2D, 2C, 2D. So there's A, B, C, D for each number. I think I've got to 3D so far, so that's about 12 stages in. And it gets very, very hard by that point. Very, very challenging. There's a lot more guns, there's a lot more stuff firing at you. There's less E-tanks to pick up. And that's basically the whole game. For as far as I've seen of it so far anyway. There may be some kind of big boss at the end or some extra new enemies, but I haven't reached anything particularly different to what you're seeing at the moment. So it's very old-fashioned in terms of gameplay, and as you can see, even though it's supposedly an update of the 1981 version, as you can see from the actual graphics here, it is really just a completely different game. And I think it's a bit of a hidden kind of secret bit of awesomeness for the PS2, which I certainly didn't have any awareness of whatsoever until I just started looking into all the games that are included on the Japanese Sega Ages discs. The controls feel great, very responsive, very smooth, and for a game like this, it's all you really need is the controls. As long as it has good controls, it doesn't matter if it's a simple premise. As long as you've got fun gameplay, good, smooth, intuitive controls, then with a game like this, you could play 100 levels of it that just get slightly harder with each stage, and it's a fun time for the whole time. So this is, a perfect example of why old retro games are still a hell of a lot of fun and still worth playing in these days of PS5 and AAA nonsense, which I personally don't really have much interest in these days. If you like Desert Strike and just general overhead Twinstick shooters and overhead tank games, maybe stuff like Arcari Warriors and all the millions of old arcade games based on tank battles, then you're absolutely going to love this. There's no question about it. If you like Smash TV, Robotron, and any number of kind of modern twin-stick shooters that you can get on Steam or whatever, I do highly recommend this. And these Sega Ages compilations, especially the Japanese-only releases, very good reason to get your PS2 modded with free McBoot or free HD boot, which is actually very cheap, well, pretty much free to do as long as you've got a fat PS2, and very, very easy to do as well. If there's any PS2 games that you'd like to see me do some capture of, I'm using the RetroTink 5X at the moment to do capture on this one, then please let me know. This game does not support 480p, unfortunately. It's one of those games that is basically programmed to work with field rendering only, so even if you try and force 480p in GSM, in OPL when you start the game, you still get the interpolation lines and what have you, and the slight fuzziness. But what you're seeing here is what I found to be the best settings overall for graphics for this particular game in GSM and on my RetroTink. So yeah, so that's Borderline on Sega Ages 2500 Volume 23, Japanese release for PS2. And I will be doing another video soon, so thanks very much for watching.